Good day everyone, I am Criza Altea P. Rivera and today I am with Susie May Edra and we are from Bachelor of Science in Psychology 2B. And this video, we will present and explore the reinforcement theory by B.F. Skinner and we will try our best to explain it as clearly and simple as possible. This presentation contains the introduction, reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Every individuals are motivated by specific outcomes, and this strategy can be used to encourage people to take certain actions while discouraging them from taking others. This theory was proposed by Boris Frederick Skinner, also known as B.F. Skinner. He was born on March 20, 1904, in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. B.F. Skinner is an American psychologist best known for his influence on behaviorism. What is reinforcement theory? Reinforcement theory states that individuals' behavior is a function of its consequences, and it is based on the law of effect. Ibig sabihin, ang behavior natin na may positive outcome ay may posibilidad na maulit, ngunit ang behavior naman na may negative outcome ay may posibilidad naman na iwasan. Ang law of effect naman ay nagsasabi kung ang isang action pa ba ay uulitin natin base sa naging epekto nito. Additionally, according to Skinner 1987, reinforcement has two effects. First is to strengthen the behavior, and second is to reward the person. Reinforcement theory's fundamental concept are reinforcement, punishment, and extinction, and that will be further discussed in this video. Reinforcement can be divided into positive and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement occurs when the consequence resulting in a behavior you are attempting to produce increases the probability that the desired behavior will continue. Any stimulus that when added to a situation increases the probability that a given behavior will occur is termed a positive reinforcer. Skinner 1953. Ibig sabihin sa positive reinforcement, nagdadagdag ka ng something pleasant para ma-encourage kang ulitin yung certain behavior na ipinakita mo. Examples of positive reinforcers are food, water, sex, money, social approval, and physical comfort. On the other hand, negative reinforcement is the removal of an aversive stimulus from a situation also increases the probability that the preceding behavior will occur. This removal results in negative reinforcement. Skinner 1953. Negative reinforcement occurs when a negative consequence is withheld if the behavior you desired is demonstrated, which will increase the probability that the behavior you are seeking will continue. Dito naman sa negative reinforcement, nagbawas ka ng something unpleasant para gawin ulit yung certain behavior. For example, some people eat because they like a particular food. Others eat to diminish hunger pangs. In both instances, the behavior of eating is strengthened because the consequences are rewarding. Ang positive reinforcement dito ay yung kumain ka ng food dahil gusto mo ito. Ibig sabihin, you find it something pleasant. That's why yung behavior na ito ay mauulit. Nagustuhan mo yung food, kaya ang gagawin mo, uulit-ulitin mo itong kainin. Ang positive reinforcer natin dito ay ang food. Sa kabilang banda, ang negative reinforcement naman ay ang kumain ka dahil nagugutom ka. Meaning, inalis o binawasan mo yung something unpleasant, which is yung gutom mo. Ang negative reinforcer naman natin dito ay yung removal of hunger. To sum it up, positive reinforcement involves the presentation of a beneficial stimulus, while negative reinforcement requires the removal of an aversive condition. Therefore, they both strengthen behavior. Next is the punishment. Punishment is the presentation of an aversive stimulus or the removal of a positive one. It does not strengthen a response. Neither does it inevitably weaken it. Ibig sabihin, ito ay ang pagbabago na magaganap pagkatapos ng isang behavior na nagdi-decrease naman ang possibility na ang behavior na iyon ay maganap muli in the future. Effects of punishment. Punishment ordinarily is imposed to prevent people from acting in a particular way. First effect is to suppress behavior. For example, if a boy teases his younger sister, his parents can make him stop by spanking him. But unfortunately, this punishment will not improve his disposition toward his sister. Ang mangyayari lang, temporary lang siyang titigil sa pang-aasar sa kanyang kapatid o kaya kapag nandyan lamang yung parents nila. Pangalawa, conditioning of negative feeling by associating a strong aversive stimulus with the behavior being punished. Same with the example I mentioned, if the pain of spanking is strong enough, it will instigate a response such as crying, withdrawal, and attack. That is incompatible with the behavior of teasing a younger sibling. Dito naman, kung maaalala niya yung about sa mistreating niya sa kanyang kapatid, that thought may elicit a classical condition response. Makakaramdam siya ng fear, anxiety, guilt, or shame, kung saan ang negative emotion na ito ang pipigil sa hindi ka nais-nais na behavior na mangyari ulit. Lastly, spread of its effects. In our example, the boy may simply learn to avoid his younger sister, stay away from his parents, or develop negative feelings toward the paddle or the place where the paddling occurred. Kaya naman, makakaramdam siya ng pagkailang sa kanyang pamilya dahil dito. Yet, this inappropriate behavior serves the purpose of preventing future punishment. Dito naman napapasok yung defense mechanism ng isang tao. Maaaring maging defense mechanism niya ang mag-fantasize, mga tuwiran ng mga agresibong pag-uugali, o mabuntun niya ito sa ibang tao. Now let's proceed to the types of punishment. Same with the reinforcement, we also have the positive and negative punishment. Positive punishment requires the presentation of an aversive stimulus. Example, pain encountered from falling as the result of walking too fast on an icy sidewalk. Falling result from a natural condition. Yung behavior dito ay walking too fast on an icy sidewalk. At ang aversive stimulus ay ang pain na encountered from falling. It is positive punishment because falling results from a natural condition and also may na-increase na unpleasant feeling. Another example is a child touches a hot stove and feels pain. Ang behavior ay child touches a hot stove and the aversive stimulus ay feels pain. So ang tendency, yung child ay hindi na ulit niya gagawin ang behavior na ito dahil sa unpleasant feeling na dinagdag. Negative punishment involves the removal of a positive reinforced. For example, a heavy fine levied against a motorist for driving too fast. Ang behavior ay driving too fast at kung saan pleasant feeling yun para sa motorist. Pero dahil ibinawas o inalis ang feeling na ito sa pamamagitan ng heavy fine, ang resulta ay hindi na niya uulitin ang ganitong behavior. To sum it up and make it clear, positive reinforcement increases the target behavior by adding something preferred or pleasant. Positive punishment decreases the target behavior by adding something aversive or unpleasant. Negative reinforcement increases the target behavior by removing away something aversive, and negative punishment decreases the target behavior by taking away something preferred.
Conditioned reinforcers. It was originally considered a neutral stimulus. When a neutral stimulus is combined with the main reinforcer, it takes on the primary reinforcer's reinforcing qualities. Conditioned reinforcers, sometimes called secondary reinforcers, are those environmental stimuli that are not by nature satisfying but become so because they are associated with such unlearned or primary reinforcers. Reinforcement and punishment are both used in the process of operant conditioning. Through operant conditioning, subjects like children, students, employees, animals, etc. learn to consciously behave so that they can receive reinforcement and avoid punishment. Reinforcers like praise or treats are encourage certain behavior. A conditioned reinforcer is typically an acceptance signal that tells the subject that their behavior is correct. It could also be an indication to keep going rather than stopping for a reward. It can be anything that is trained to consistently give the subject any feeling, even unintentional stimuli on its broadest sense. Any perceived signal such as word, praise, or sound can be used as the signal. The signal may be lost in the background of environment noise at first because it has no meaning. Words like good boy and the animal's name can be used in the animal training. A whistle, a clicker, or toy can also be used. When teaching an animal, setting up a conditioned reinforcer is an excellent first step. Pair it with a positive reinforcer to achieve this by continuously saying good while feeding them a treat. You can connect the good and food. It may take some time to set up this reinforcer, but with perseverance, it can be successfully implemented. When paired with highly desirable incentives like delicious food, the reinforcer's strength can be boosted. Generalized reinforcer. It is a secondary reinforcer that are combined with multiple main reinforcer are called generalized reinforcer. Generalized reinforcer can be exchanged for a great variety of primary reinforcers. In addition, generalized reinforcer is associated with more than one primary reinforcer. Generalized reinforcers is a consequence that has been linked with a variety of reinforcing consequence until it has taken a reinforcing capability of its own. Generalized reinforcers are less susceptible to satiation because you can likely access something you are motivated for using them, regardless of your motivational state. Like for example, money is difficult to satisfy since it may be used to buy so many different things. As a result, Generalized reinforcers tend to have reinforcing effects on behavior most of the time and don't require a specific establishing action. Schedules of reinforcement. Reinforcement can follow behavior on either a continuous schedule or an intermittent one. The learning process in operant conditioning relies heavily on reinforcement schedules. These strengthen velocity of reaction can be greatly influenced by when and how often we reward a behavior. A reinforcement schedule is an essential guideline that specifies which occurrence of behavior will be reinforced. A behavior may be reinforced each time it occurs in particular circumstances. A behavior may or may not receive any reinforcement. Reinforcement schedules occur in both untrusted and structured learning environments. Behavior are unlikely to be reinforced every time it occurs in real-world situation. You would follow a specific reinforcement schedule in circumstances when you are attempting to strengthen a specific action. For example, in your study or education, sports or athletics, or in animal training, certain training circumstances require different schedules. In some circumstances, training may require one schedule, in which is subsequently switched to another when the required behavior has been taught. Continuous reinforcement and intermittent are the two basic types of reinforcement regimens. When using continuous reinforcement schedule, a reinforcer is delivered every time a desired behavior is performed. It increases the frequency of a response but is an efficient use of the reinforce. The desired behavior is reinforced every time it occurs in continuous reinforcement. This schedule is best employed during the early stages of learning to establish a strong link between the behavior and response. For example, you are trying to teach your dog to shake your hand. You will use a continuous reinforcement schedule to teach and establish the behavior during the early stages of learning. This could include taking the dog's paw, shaking it, saying shake, and then rewarding the dog each time you complete these steps. The dog will eventually begin to perform the action on its own. Intermittent schedule. An intermittent reinforcement schedule is one in which only some responses are reinforced. It makes more efficient use of the reinforcers and produces responses that are more resistant to extinction. Intermittent schedule is when some but not all occurrences of a behavior are reinforced. It's called reinforcement. A ratio or interval schedule for intermittent reinforcement can be used. When a specified number of replies are emitted before reinforcement, this is referred to as ratio schedule. When a response is reinforced after a set period of time has passed since the previous reinforcement, it is called interval schedule. A fixed or variable interval or ratio schedule is possible. When the number of responses or the amount of the time are both consistent, the schedule is said to be fixed. When the quantity of the time between reinforcements varies based on the average, it is called variable schedule. These are the four basic intermittent schedule. Number 1. Fixed ratio with a fixed ratio schedule. A fixed ratio schedule is a reinforcement schedule in which response is reinforced after a certain number response. In essence, the subject gives a certain number of responses before the trainer gives a reward. The organism is reinforced intermittently according to the number of responses it makes. Ratio refers to the ratio of responses to reinforce. An experimenter may decide to reward a pigeon a grain pallet for every fifth peck it makes at a disc. The pigeon is conditioned at a fixed ratio schedule of 5 to 1, that is FR5. Number 2. Variable ratio with a fixed ratio schedule. The organism is reinforced after every ninth response. With the variable ratio schedule, it is reinforced after the ninth response and the average. Again, training must start with continuous reinforcement, proceed to a low response number, and then increase to a higher rate of response. A pigeon rewarded every third response on the average can build to a VR6 schedule, then VR10, and so on. But then, mean number of responses must be increased gradually to prevent extinction. Number 3. Fixed interval with fixed interval schedule. The organism is reinforced for the first response following a designated period of time. For example, F15 indicates that the organism is rewarded for its first response after a very 5 minutes interval. Employees for working salary of wages approximately fixed interval schedule They are paid every week, every 2 weeks of a month. But this pay schedule is not strictly a fixed interval schedule, although pigeons typically shows a spurt in world towards the end of the time period. Most human workers distribute their efforts fairly even rather than the loafing most of the time and then showing an end of the period sport. This situation is due in part to such factors as watch supervisors, threats of dismissal, promises of promotion, or self-generated reinforcers. Number 4. Variable interval, a variable interval schedule. It is one in which organisms is reinforces after the lapse of random or varied periods of time. For example, V15 means that the organism is reinforced following random length intervals that they average 5 minutes. Such schedule result in more responses per interval than do fixed interval schedules. For humans, reinforcement result more often from one's effort rather than a passage of time. For this reason, ratio schedules are more common than interval schedules, and the variable interval schedule is probably the least common of all. Extinction. Eliminating any reinforcement that is maintaining a behavior is called extinction. One's learned responses can be lost for at least 4 reasons. These are the 4 reasons. First, they can simply be forgotten during the passage of time. Second, and more likely, they can be lost due to the interference of proceeding of subsequent learning. The third, they can disappear due to punishment. And the last one, fourth, the cause of lost learning is extinction, defined as the tendency of previously acquired response to become progressively weakened upon non-reinforcement. Operant extinction takes place when an experimenter systematically withholds reinforcement of a previously learned response until the probability of that response diminishes to 0. This is Susime Anthony Edra and Grisel Altea Rivera, and this is the end of our presentation of reinforcement theory. Thank you and God bless.